Welcome to Bangla City SATV News. This is Nuri Alamin with the headlines. Bangladesh urges to expedite Rohingya verification. Myanmar assures cooperation. Japan pledges $2 million for Rohingyas at Bhasanchar. Moderate to mild cold wave sweeping over the country. Lowest temperature recorded at a cool 6.1 degrees Celsius in Kurigram. Nearly 80 people died from tropical storm Ana in southern Africa. Emergency terms battle to help tens of thousands of victims. Bangladesh urges Myanmar to expedite Rohingya verification. Frustration has expressed over the slow pace of verification of displaced Rohingyas. They have also been urged to expedite the verification process. This was urged at a meeting between the two countries on Thursday. The first meeting of the newly formed ad hoc task force technical committee to verify the Rohingyas displaced from Rakhine was held virtually between Bangladesh and Myanmar. Shah Rizwan Hayat, Commissioner for Refugee Relief and Repatriation, Ministry of Disaster Management and Relief, Bangladesh, and Yetun Yu, Deputy Director General, Ministry of Immigration and Population, Myanmar, led each. At the meeting, both sides expressed their determination to look into the reasons for the delay in verifying the displaced people in Rakhine. Shah Rizwan Hayat offered all possible cooperation under the three bilateral processes to expedite the verification process. He also added the sustainable repatriation of the displaced people of Rakhine would be ensured quickly if the difficulties and problems of verification could be solved. At the meeting, the Myanmar delegation assured the cooperation in completing the verification process. The South campus was turbulent for the last 12 days from clashes, demonstrators, blockades, hunger strikes, slogans, etc. as well. However, the students didn't back down, but they have just changed the nature of the movement. The students informed that by organizing a friendly football match protesting against the VC yesterday, a different type protest was held by a football match referring to the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Fariduddin Ahmed. Although the agitators saw the issue as the protest, many teachers and officials of the university didn't take it well. They commented that the game was extravagant and very inappropriate. The students have been protesting since January 13, demanding resignation of the Provost Committee of Begum Sirajunnisa Chaudhry Hall. At the time, the police disparaged the students of throwing sound the grenade, tear gas and rubber bullets as well. Several students were also injured. Winter has intensified its cold grip on Bangladesh, especially the northern region, with a moderate to mild cold wave sweeping over the country. The lowest temperature in the country on Friday was recorded at cool 6.1 degrees Celsius in Kurigram. The cold snap hit several parts of the country, with the Met Office predicting it to continue and spread during the next 2 days. The Bangladesh Meteorological Department predicted the cold wave may continue and spread during the next 2 days. On the other hand, the night temperature may go down up to 1 or 2 degrees Celsius. Police high-ups yesterday placed before the Home Minister a slew of demands, including separate divisions of them at many ministries and upgrade of the IGP's rank to that of the 4-star general. They also demanded appropriate in the police officials, a different government organizations, and establishment of a university and a training academy around Dhaka, an increase in Inspector General of Police expenditure limit of the 50 crore taka from existing 5 crore taka was also asked. Home Minister Asaduzzaman Khan Kamal praised them, saying the demands were for the welfare of the police. Some of them can be implemented at the ministry. He also said they have been doing whenever anything is needed for the police. Other demands can be implemented after taking with the Prime Minister. Voting for the Bangladesh Films Artists Association has started at 9 a.m. Ilyas Kanchun and actress Nipun are fighting to become the new president and general secretary to defeat the Misha Zayed due elected in the last 2 terms. The time the association has 426 voters. The 184 member of the Misha Zaid committee who lost their voting rights in 2016 are still unable to cast their votes. Although a writ petition has been filed in the High Court in this regard, it has not yet been resolved. Like the last time, another panel is electing Misha Saudagar as the president and Zaid Khan as the general secretary. However, the people involved in the film thinks that this time there will be a fierce battle. This time, Pizarda Harum is acting as the commissioner in the election of Shilpi Samiti. Shohanur Rahman Chauhan has been made the chairman of the board of appeal. Meanwhile, Nipul objects Zaid Khan of bribing the voters. 2022 marks the 50th anniversary of the establishment of the diplomatic relations between Bangladesh and other countries. To this end, the preparations are underway to organize various programs jointly. The various embassies in the Dhaka and Bangladesh missions abroad have already undertaken various programs. After the independence in 1972, Bangladesh was jointly by Germany, United Kingdom, Italy, France, USA, Malaysia, many more. Many embassies have also created special logos to mark the 50th anniversary of these relationships. A.K. Abdul Momen hoped that Bangladesh bilateral relations with other countries would be further strengthened through the implementation of these programs. Viewers, we are taking a short break. Stay with Bangla City SATV. Welcome back, and you are watching Bangla City SATV News. Now we move on to international story updates. The death toll from the tropical storm that struck 3 southern African countries rose around 80. Meanwhile, emergency teams battled to repair damaged infrastructure and helped tens of thousands of victims. Storm Ana made the torrential rains and landfall earlier Madagascar before plugging into the Mozambique and Malawi. Rescue workers and authorities across the 3 countries were still assessing the full extent of the damage. Meanwhile, the Madagascar declared a state of national disaster as the death toll rose to 48. Mozambique reported 18 killed, while the 11 had died in Malawi. Tens of thousands of homes were damaged. Swollen rivers washed away bridges and submerged fields, trapping victims in the rubble. Schools and gyms were turned into the emergency shelters. 10,000 homes and dozens of schools and hospitals destroyed, including downing power lines. 10 Pakistani troops were killed in the southern province of the Balochistan in a checkpoint firefight. During intense exchange of the fire, an assailant was killed, 3 gunmen were captured, and several others were injured by army troops. In a statement, separatist group Balochistan Liberation Army responsibility for the assault and said the military death toll stood at 17. A spokesman for Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan said he felt deep sorrow over the incident. US President Joe Biden, meanwhile, has reaffirmed Washington's readiness to respond decisively if Russia invade Ukraine. During a phone call with Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky, President Biden underlines his administration's commitment to Ukraine sovereignty and territorial integrity. Biden also added the U.S. is exploring additional aid to help Ukraine's economy, and the U.S. embassy in Ukraine will operate normally. The phone came just a day after Washington gave Moscow its written response on the Russia's security demand. In Buenos Aires, the thousands of Argentines marching the reject Argentinian protesters have long railed against the President Alberto Fernandez's decision to regenerate the country's IMF debt $1 billion. They are pressuring the government to default on the first payment due to this Friday. The country is continuing tens of negotiations with IMF to regenerate the loan of around $40 billion. Protesters have blamed the IMF to austerity measures that worsened a major economic crisis from 2001 to 2002, which left many Argentines in poverty. The de facto head of India's Congress party, Rahul Gandhi, has complained Twitter about strange activity on his account, accusing the US giant of being unwitting ally of the government in curbing their speech. Rahul said the believed Twitter was part of the unwitting complicity in curbing free and fair speech, but that the social media firm has an enormous responsibility to ensure that Twitter doses and it doesn't actively help in the growth and authoritarians in India. Meanwhile, Twitter said this week India ranked fourth highest globally in the number of requests made by the government to remove content. Survivors of the Auschwitz concentration camp commemorate the 77 Liberation Day on Thursday with an event at the Auschwitz Museum. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, most of the testimonies delivered by the survivors were pre-recorded and aired during the ceremony. And also some, the moment they arrived at the concentration camp is still fresh in their mind. The Auschwitz, the Birkenau Museum and Memorial preserve the death camp set up to the police soil of the Nazis during the World War II, and more than 1.1 million people, mostly Jews, perished in gas chambers in the camp or from the starvation, cold or disease. Now a story from the sports world. The Winter Olympics is a huge marketing opportunity for sponsors. However, Beijing 2022 is causing a huge headache for the 13 official cooperate partners of the Games. Many countries, including US, UK, Australia and Canada, are making a diplomatic boycott of the Winter Olympics in China as allegation of the human rights violations against in minority Uyghur population, action of the Tibet and Kong raised against Hong Kong raised against the country. Although the athletes from the completing countries will still participate, being stuck in a middle of a diplomatic spot between the US and China, many sponsors are choosing to stay silent despite Olympic being a huge marketing area. 2 years ago, NBA legend Kobe Bryant, his teenage daughter Gianna and 7 others died after the helicopter crashed on a hillside near the Los Angeles. Marking the 2 years since the crash, a 73-kilogram bronze statue depicting the Kobe Bryant and Gianna was installed on Wednesday. The statue shows the pair wearing the basketball uniform and sharing a loving glance in Gigi hold the Kobe Bryant helm. It rests on the shoulder. Also engraved on the statue, the pedestal are the name of the 9 victims on the crash, as well as an inspiration of the Kobe Bryant's famous quote, "Heroes come and go, but legends are forever." Before ending, we go through Bangla City SATV News headlines again. Bangladesh urges to expedite Rohingya verification. Myanmar assures cooperation. Japan pledges $2 million for Rohingyas at Bhasanchar. Moderate to mild cold wave sweeping over the country. Lowest temperature recorded at the cool 6.1 degrees Celsius in Kurigram. Nearly 80 people died from tropical storm Ana in southern Africa. Emergency terms battle to help tens of thousands of victims. You are up to date with the Bangla City SATV News, and to know the latest news, visit www.satv.tv. Stay with SATV.